If you want to know who I am, I am Rachel Giannis Middle. Gilbert & Sullivan is my middle name, and my middle name is my last name. And I am here on behalf of Four-Bear Theatre to explore the magic of the Gilbert & Sullivan operas by very pedantically ranking every element of them. Or am I? So, for this particular video, I have several things to say in this introduction to the Mikado dialogue. For a start, it's now not racist. Hooray! Apart from, I do say Japan once by accident. Because I have had this idea for a little while, ever since I was in New York, that where I should set the Mikado is not in Japan, but in Catan, as in the settlers of Catan. It's a board game, and you may be thinking to yourselves, like, how can you base an opera on a board game? Well, that's because the content of the Mikado is actually nothing to do with where they are, and the story could literally be set anywhere, and it's still the same story. But what I have done is I have also changed the names. And I'm just going to explain why I've changed the names, because you know what? It wasn't actually obvious to me why the names are problematic until relatively recently. I directed this in 2017, like after the controversy had come up, but I still used the names when I directed because it hadn't really occurred to me that the names were the bad part of it. When Gilbert was writing the names, he was obviously trying to be funny and trying to imitate what he believed to be Japanese-isms, which I don't think is very kind. Two of the characters have a reference to excrement in their name, as well as the name of the town where the Mikado is set in. So I just happen to think that that's not particularly nice. It seems to me like Gilbert is, you know, albeit gently, making fun of a language, which I just don't think is very polite. So I have written the names below in the description. The names I am using for the characters are as follows. I have Klók-Cow, the cheap tailor. I have Æthel-Rún, who is a wandering minstrel. I have Páfugl-Fa, who is the Lord High Everything. I have Kutilska, who is the daughter-in-law elect. I have Nayum, who is the bride-to-be. And I have Petikin, who is her sister, or not sister, friend, the bottom friend. I've not bothered yet to name the middle mezzo and the auxiliary baritone role. I've not bothered to name them yet because they aren't actually named in the dialogue, but I'll have a think about that. You guys may look at these names or listen to them and think, oh, those are a bit jarring, but you know what? Of course you're going to find them jarring because you're used to listening to other names. And I'm certainly not saying that these should be the names everyone should use. They're the names that I'm using because I want to set the Mikado in a kind of forest universe. It's in one of the woods in Qatar. Let's just say it's actually not really anything to do with the board game. But you know, you can see the people here are kind of vaguely medieval, so I'm setting it in a kind of mythical medieval landscape with all kinds of creatures. I might have centaurs, fairies, elves, cat people. That's what Kutilska is going to be. She's going to be a tabaxi, which is a cat person, because there's cat in the original name. That was the logic there. And it may not seem on the surface like I've put a great deal of thought into the names, but if you're gonna write a comment about how rubbish the names are, please do understand that I actually did put a huge amount of thought into these names. And like, it's totally fine to still have an issue with it, but try and be constructive with your criticism. Don't just say they sound awful, because they're actually very cleverly constructed. And I'm not gonna give away at this stage exactly how I've constructed the names. I will tell you that I've used a mixture of Celtic, Saxon and Old Norse to make up the names, and they are meaningful. Like every name, and I'll spell them below as well so you'll see how they're written out. Every name means something, and it's relevant to the characters that they are named for. So do try and appreciate the intelligence that went into creating those names, and it's okay if you have any better suggestions that are along the same lines. That's nice to hear, but don't just tell me they're horrible, because that would just make me cry, and I don't want to cry. Anyway, though, I'm not even going to talk about parameters for these videos, because even though I will be ranking these dialogue scenes among the others when I eventually make my big long list of dialogue scenes, and there will be some that might fall lower than others because there are some scenes that are just short and not much happens in them, but quite honestly, there is nothing at all to fault in these scenes, and to attempt to fault them would seem disingenuous, and it would just end up with me apologising the whole time for saying, oh, I do love this scene, but... Like, maybe if there's any fault I notice along the way, I will point it out. I think there's maybe a couple of jokes in there that I seem to remember from experience fall a bit flat, but honestly, this dialogue is pretty much perfect. And I honestly couldn't think of anything bad about it. And even in the scenes that aren't so dynamic or high stakes, it's because there's perfect exposition in there. Every character is so well crafted. I do think that despite what I think somebody tried to tell me in the comments when I talked about her in my trios video, the bottom maid, I think that she is a good vehicle for actors, but I don't believe that she does have a very solid character, neither does the middle mezzo. But it does seem like most of the characters in the Mikado, the vast majority of them, have such well-defined characters. I have thought a great deal about how I'm going to read some of these characters, but then some, you know, I'd never really thought of before. Like Páfugl-Fa, the Lord High Everything. I'd not really thought about how to say those lines. The Mikado as well, even though I got this very funny idea to do it completely dry, and that's what I've been doing so far in these videos. That sounds very interesting, and I wish I could have seen it, but we actually came about a totally different matter. The thing is, I like that, but at the same time it's not really suitable for being on stage. So as you can see, I'm trying out a few things on the Mikado. I'm trying to get that same kind of energy, but just giving it a bit more projection and presence. And then I'm trying to make him a bit deranged in places. So, you know, I try various things, but I will remind everyone that in these dialogue videos, I am not performing for you how I think they should be performed. It is what comes out of me when I'm sitting down and holding the book. And sometimes I watch them back and think, oh, actually, I wouldn't play it that way. So this is not my opinion of how the parts should be played. It's just what came out of my mouth on this occasion.
And what may be your business with Nayum? I'll tell you. A year ago, I was a member of the Anarapur town band. It was my duty to take the capran for contributions. While discharging this delicate office, I saw Nayum. We loved each other at once. But she was betrothed to her guardian, Klók-Cow, a cheap tailor, and I saw that my suit was hopeless. Overwhelmed with despair, I quitted the town. Judge of my delight when I heard, a month ago, that Klók-Cow had been condemned to death for flirting. I hurried back at once, in the hope of finding Nayum at liberty to listen to my protestations. It is true that Klók-Cow was condemned to death for flirting, but he was reprieved at the last moment, and raised to the exalted rank of Lord High Executioner under the following remarkable circumstances.
So for a start, this is one of my favourite pre-song lines of any of them. Under the following remarkable circumstances. I think that's so sweet and funny, and it's just, this whole show is so, like, abnormal in the sense that this is not the way that people speak, however you still believe them. And I think that makes for the most entertaining show you could possibly imagine. So there's not too much to say about this scene, because it's mostly exposition, and the thing is, it does the exposition very well. It's delivered in an emotional way, because of course Æthel-Rún has come to find Nayum, and he is in love with her, and so his stakes are very high because he really wants to find her. However, the main purpose of this scene is to get information across, and that does happen. But there is still a joke in there. One of my favourite jokes well, certainly, like, my favourite one-liner from this scene. I think I'm going to do all my favourite one-liners from every scene, but this one is, and I saw that my suit was hopeless. Because he's talking about his idea to marry Nayum, but also suit has a double meaning because it also refers to what you're wearing. Therein lies the humour. And I'm going to explain all these jokes to you. I'm in a very strange mood today, aren't I? Nervous. That's a good girl. So while I don't think that this is the most interesting scene of the show, it fulfills everything it needs to fulfill. And it does so in such a snappy, quick way. If you think about how long typically the exposition, the like initial exposition scenes are in the other operas, that they're very long and it takes quite a while to impart what you need to know for then the next scenes to happen. So if you think about how amazingly snappy this one is, you're just straight in there. Gentlemen of Catan, straight in there. Not even gentlemen. If you want to know who we are settlers of Catan. And, you know, as I say, like, I don't think it needs to even be really about the board game, but you know, everyone knows. Well, does everyone know the Settlers of Catan? If you don't, you should play it. It's a good game. But it's basically a game where you like fight for resources, and the resources are wheat, sheep, wood, rock, and brick, and you can like trade resources with each other. And so maybe at some point in the show you might see somebody walking across the stage with like loads of hay, and then they come back with a sheep. So there's jokes to be had. A note on Anarpo. I haven't thought much about this town name at all. Please, somebody think of like a better kind of Middle-earth town. I just had to come up with that one because I forgot to name the town, and then I realised when I was doing that video, like, oh no, I had to come up with a name, so I came up with them super quickly. So you're allowed to criticise Anarpo. It doesn't sound very good. It comes from the Old Norse, which I believe is Erpo, but it's got like a weird P, so I don't even know if it's pronounced per. And an is just kind of a word, I can't remember we're in which language. An, like anima, it's for like soul and life, and so, and Erpo is like earth and nature, so it's kind of like life in nature. So it was very hurriedly come up with, but if anyone wants to think of a name for the town that they think is better, please do. I agree that name isn't very good, but I had to just put in something for the sake of having a name. But if we were ranking these against each other, this one would probably be like second to bottom. The bottom one's probably going to be like Klók-Cow's speech before Little List song, because that's just so short. But that's not because there's anything wrong with it, it's just because it is short in its exposition. But it's good that it's got out of the way this quickly.
Klók-Cow, the Chief Tailor, Lord High Executioner of Anarpo? Why, that's the highest rank a citizen can attain.
It is. Our logical Mikado, seeing no moral difference between the dignified judge who condemns a criminal to die and the industrious mechanic who carries out the sentence, has rolled the two offices into one, and every judge is now his own executioner.
But how good of you, for I see that you are a nobleman of the highest rank, to condescend to tell all this to me, a mere strolling minstrel.
Don't mention it. I am, in point of fact, a particularly haughty and exclusive person of pre-Adamite ancestral descent. You will understand this when I tell you that I can trace my ancestry back to a protoplasmal primordial atomic globule. Consequently, my family pride is something inconceivable. I can't help it. I was born sneering, but I struggle hard to overcome this defect. I mortify my pride continually. When all the great officers of state resigned in a body because they were too proud to serve under an ex-tailor, did I not unhesitatingly accept all their posts at once?
And the salaries attached to them, you did.
It is consequently my degrading duty to serve this upstart as First Lord of the Treasury, Lord Chief Justice, Commander-in-Chief, Lord High Admiral, Master of the Backhounds, Groom of the Backstairs, Archbishop of Anarpo, and Lord Mayor, both acting and elect, all rolled into one, and at a salary. A Páfugl-Fa paid for his services. I, a salaried minion. But I do it. It revolts me, but I do it.
And it does you credit.
But I don't stop at that. I go and dine with middle-class people on reasonable terms. I dance at cheap suburban parties for a moderate fee. I accept refreshment at any hands, however lowly. I also retail state secrets at a very low figure. For instance, any further information about Nayong would come under the head of a state secret. Another insult. And I think a light one.
Okay, so where do I start with this scene? The fact that Páfugl-Fa just like wanders in, it is. That's the highest rank a citizen can attain. It is. Our logical Mikado. He just starts, so it's more exposition, but it's delivered in such a kind of self-aware, like very funny, but very like self-deprecating way. It's almost like Gilbert is saying to us, yeah, I know this is a little bit silly, but just immerse yourselves in it, get stuck in, and have a lovely time. And I think that it's really up to the actors here to be absolutely convinced of the words they're saying, to like utter these words with lots and lots of conviction, and just make sure that you are really getting the audience into this place and we're not like making fun of the material. And just, it's very heavy on the exposition, very heavy on characters speaking like people would never speak. That, how good of you to condescend to tell all this to me, a mere strolling minstrel. It's just the kind of thing people wouldn't say, isn't it? But I love it. And then Páfugl-Fa's big monologue. Well, he has three big monologues, really. It rolls, I mean, I think I did have to record it twice. And it was but the only reason was because my phone went off when I said, I can't help it, I was born sneering, so I had to just do the whole thing again, but then I realised actually apart from that line it was really good the first time, so I just put the second sneering into the first one. But like literally apart from that, I didn't even make any mistakes, like it just kind of rolled out of me. And I actually found that about all of his speeches. It's possible that I've just retained the information very well. When I think about how I was reading the lines in Princess Ida and how I kept stuttering and stopping and having to go back over and over again on these lines, but this I just didn't really have to because the words are written so well. The way even though the sentences are super long, you can still kind of get them out. And that's why, like, to me, every scene in this opera it would just get like a 10 out of 10 for beauty of language. Not because like the poetry is overtly very expressive, like comparing people's eyes to the sun or whatever people who are in love do, but because the words just roll out of people so easily and it feels like poetry even though it's prose. That's why the Mikado was just so incredibly good. The dialogue, that is. I mean, and the music, but I mean, we're talking about the dialogue today. But this is just solid gold dialogue. I think it is just absolutely wonderful. I do it. It revolts me, but I do it. Think of how often it is that a character appears and gives so much of themselves in such a short space of time and is immediately both likeable but also like a really detestable human being. Think how clever the writing is to kind of get that effect. I mean, he isn't even a villain. He doesn't really have any strong opinions. That's the crazy thing. Like, usually characters are likeable because they're relatable. But Páfugl-Fa, he isn't really relatable at all. He's just incredibly greedy and self-obsessed, but he's so honest about it. I think that's what makes him so endearing, because he'll just say things, but you know, I wouldn't degrade myself unless you paid me a very considerable bribe. He just comes out and says it like he's not even embarrassed about it. I think actually in the dialogue I did do a bit of a state secret, but actually I wonder if he's just completely shameless about, and he isn't even secretive about the fact that he'll just do absolutely anything for money. And then I wonder if he genuinely means everything he's saying. Like, in a later scene, I'll get more into this, but I wonder if this is all completely genuine. And he's not doing it in pursuit of money. He is doing it because he feels like he has to knock himself down a peg. And that just kind of immediately makes it funnier. Because when characters really believe what they're saying, it's just always funnier. We don't really know too much about Æthel-Rún yet and the auxiliary baritone. They've not really shown us too much of who they are yet. We get to see them later. But this scene, for Páfugl-Fa's benefit, I'd say if I was ranking him, it may rank slightly lower than the other ones, just because it's only really one character that's getting a good showcase. But still, it's such a cracking scene. I mean, this is a really iconic scene. And I have nothing bad to say about it.
Gentlemen, I am much touched by this reception. I can only trust that by strict attention to duty I shall enjoy a continuance of those favours which it will ever be my study to deserve. If I should ever be called upon to act professionally, I am happy to think that there will be no difficulty in finding plenty of people whose loss would be a distinct gain to society at large.
So yeah, not much of a scene. I only included it because it seems sacrilegious to not include every single word she says, having changed some of the words, but you know what I mean. The reason I'm not really gonna talk about this scene is because I wouldn't actually use this scene at all. I would instead put this line maybe a little bit later. So Will totally blew my mind, totally blew my mind when I was in New York, because he showed me that in the first night version of the Mikado, the Little List song actually happens later. So it happens in the scene before I Am So Proud, where Klók-Cow is trying to convince the others to allow him to put somebody else to death instead of kill himself. To me that seems so much better, because then the song has actual stakes and isn't just a big bitch fest. You know, it's actually no, don't kill me, kill all of these other people. There's this person, there's this person. You can imagine him backing away while the others are closing in, and it makes the song automatically way more interesting, in my humble opinion.
Páfugl-Fa, it seems that the festivities in connection with my approaching marriage must last a week. I should like to do it handsomely, and I want to consult you as to the amount I ought to spend upon them. Certainly. In which of my capacities? As First Lord of the Treasury, Lord Chamberlain, Attorney General, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Privy Purse, or Private Secretary?
Suppose we say as Private Secretary.
Speaking as your Private Secretary, I should say that as the city will have to pay for it, don't stint yourself. Do it well.
Exactly. As the city will have to pay for it. That is your advice.
As Private Secretary. Of course, you will understand that as Chancellor of the Exchequer, I am bound to see that due economy is observed.
Oh, but you said just now, don't stint yourself, do it well.
As Private Secretary.
And now you say that due economy must be observed.
As Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I see. Come over here, where the Chancellor can't hear us. Now, as my solicitor, how do you advise me to deal with this difficulty?
Oh, as your solicitor, I should have no hesitation in saying, chance it.
Thank you, I will.
If it were not as Lord Chief Justice, I am bound to see that the law isn't violated.
I see. Come over here, where the Chief Justice can't hear us. Now then, as First Lord of the Treasury.
Of course. As First Lord of the Treasury, I could propose a special vote that would cover all expenses. If it were not that, as Leader of the Opposition, it would be my duty to resist it tooth and nail. Or, as Paymaster General, I could so cook the accounts that as Lord High Auditor, I should never discover the fraud. But then, as Archbishop of Anarpo, it would be my duty to denounce my dishonesty and give myself into my own custody as First Commissioner of Police.
That's extremely awkward.
I don't say that all these distinguished people couldn't be squared, but it is right to tell you that they wouldn't be sufficiently degraded in their own estimation unless they were insulted with a very considerable bribe.
The matter shall have my careful consideration. My bride and her sister's approach, and any little compliment on your part, such as an abject grovel in a characteristic Catanese attitude, would be esteemed a favour.
No money, no grovel.
What an iconic scene this one is. The silliness of having one person with many responsibilities. It reminds me of Talola's line in Iolanthe, let us be glad that we are people with no capacity whatsoever. This is where I'm getting into this idea of Páfugl-Fa actually genuinely meaning all of this. So whereas I usually see this being played as in he's quite knowing of what's going on and he's deliberately engineering this situation because he knows that at the end of it he's gonna get some money, even though he does not need any money at all. It's just, the whole thing is ridiculous. But it could be quite funny if he genuinely means all of this and he's actually genuinely trying to help Klók-Cow out with this wedding and trying to make sure that he has the wedding that he wants. And oh god, but I can't do that as Lord Chancellor, you know. So that's quite funny. It's the idea that it's not one person coming up against a brick wall, but two people trying to figure something out. Immediately, to me, like, this is way funnier. So yeah, it seems to me like this video is just going to be my thoughts on these rather than me rating them, because as I say, this is just such an iconic scene. But you say, don't stint yourself, do it well, as private secretary. And now you say that due economy must be observed, as Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's just, there's a whole scene about this. Isn't it amazing how there was an exposition which went by really quickly and snappily and that got out of the way, and now we are really delving into something that's so minor, that's not really to do with the story. I mean, it is in a sense that Páfugl-Fa does have all these responsibilities, and that does come in many times and in many very hilarious ways. But this scene here, the content of this scene, could have been totally cut and it wouldn't have changed the plot of the Mikado, but it is just perfect. I would personally just put this in straight after Klók-Cow's entrance, but it's just the perfect kind of comic relief after this big grand piece. The Lord High Execution has come on, and then you just get this really, really stupid scene. If it were not that as leader of the opposition, it would be my duty to resist it to the nail. And the thing is, he would. I believe that he would. I imagine the whole plot point of Páfugl-Fa having all these roles in government was really designed to kind of show how ridiculous authority in government is. And it, again, like, the works of Gilbert and Sullivan are so current, and this really calls into mind the situation we have in our UK government today, where we have, you know, we don't have one person doing lots of things, but we certainly do have a situation where people are very easily corruptible and just lie all the time. And then, as I was saying earlier on, I don't say that all these distinguished people couldn't be squared, but it is a right to tell you that they wouldn't be sufficiently degraded in their own estimation unless they were insulted with a very considerable bribe. And that's actually quite a difficult line to deliver, because it's not a thing that people would say, because you never hear people just saying, could I have a bribe please, and then I'll do it. And that's why it's so subverting of everyone's expectations. I've just read here in the Bradley that no money, no grovel was actually one of Barrington's gags and was actually nothing to do with Gilbert, and he didn't like that. But I think it's really cute because, you know, Páfugl-Fa, he's really sassy, and I like that. No money, no grovel. And also, we haven't really talked about Klók-Cow, the Lord High Executioner, in this scene, but we are definitely starting to see his character coming through as well. I have seen this character played so many different ways. There is definitely no correct way of playing this character. But after talking to Will quite a lot about it, I honestly think that the best way to play him is just that he is completely at 100 the whole time in terms of his anxiety. And it's quite difficult for me to play in these videos because I'm sitting down, it's only me. But I just imagine his character to just be completely deranged with anxiety the whole time, because the thing is, he's in a really, really precarious position, which him, Páfugl-Fa, as you talk about in the next scene just very briefly. And this position could be taken away from him at any time, and not only that, he's still in danger of being killed. Like, the people could decide that they don't want this situation and they could just kill him. Later on, you know, he says that Mikado says that, you know, it was bound to come sooner or later, so he knows the day is coming where he's going to have to kill someone. And he knows it's going to fall on him because he's the next person to be executed. So he's living in this constant state of anxiety, and even though he seems to like Naum and seems to kind of have wants and desires, it just seems to me that his primary desire is just to get out of this situation because it doesn't really seem like he's having a good time. It seems like he's very anxious. He doesn't really know where he stands. He talks to Páfugl-Fa, fine, but even he's a little bit nervous around him, a little bit deferential towards him, and the auxiliary baritone as well. He doesn't really quite seek to be commanding anyone, even though he is meant to be like the highest ranked citizen in the town. So he's a really interesting character, and I like the idea that he is just this genius, but also a total coward. And being a coward is relatable. A lot of people are cowards, including myself at some points. And so that is a thing that we can relate to. A person who often has their tail between their legs, a person who, when it comes to fight or flight situations, it's definitely flight. A person who doesn't face up to responsibilities. And the thing is, it doesn't make him a bad person. He's just not really particularly a person that we aspire to be. But then again, he's relatable, and he goes on like a little arc. So we do get to see a softer part of him a bit later. But yeah, we see a little bit of that anxiety in this scene. But really, like, for me, this scene is mainly about Páfugl-Fa and the funny things that he's saying. But yeah, we do get to see a bit of that funny anxiety creeping in.
Alas, my bride that is to be! You're not going to kiss me before all these people?
Well, that was the idea.
It seems odd, doesn't it? It's rather peculiar. Oh, I expect it's all right. Must have a beginning, you know. Well, of course, I know nothing about these things, but I have no objection if it's usual.
Oh, it's quite usual, I think, eh? Lord Chamberlain, I have known it done.
Thank goodness that's over. Why, that's never you. Oh, I'm
Have
so
you got
glad.
engaged?
I haven't
You
seen
got
her ever
engaged.
so long,
Right.
and I'm right at the top of
School,
school.
that's
That's
so
much
much
rather it was you, and I've come home for good, and
We're
I'm not
not
going
going
back
anymore.
anymore.
I beg your pardon. Will you present me?
Oh, this is the gentleman who used...
One at a time, if you please.
Oh, if you please, he's the gentleman who used to play so beautifully on the Marine Parade. Yes, I think that was the name of the instrument.
Sir, I have the misfortune to love your ward, Naum. Oh, I know I deserve your anger. Anger? Not a bit, my boy. Why, I love her myself. Charming little girl, isn't she? Pretty eyes, nice hair, taking little thing altogether. Very glad to hear my opinion backed up by a competent authority. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Take him away.
I beg your pardon, but who is this?
Customer come to try on? That is a tremendous swell.
Oh, it's alive!
Go away, little girls. Can't talk to little girls like you. Go away, there's dears. Allow me to present you. Páfugl-Fa, these are my 3 wards. The one in the middle is my bride-elect. What do you want me to do with them? Mind, I will not kiss them. No, you shan't kiss them. A little bow. A mere nothing. You needn't mean it, you know. It goes against the grain. They are not young ladies, they are young persons. Come, make an effort. There's a good nobleman. Well, I shan't mean it. How do you do, little girls? How do you do? Oh, my protoplasmal ancestor. That's very good. I see nothing to laugh at. It is very painful to me to have to say how do you do, little girls, how do you do to young persons. I'm not in the habit of saying how do you do, little girls, how do you do to anybody under the rank of a stockbroker. Don't laugh at him. He can't help it. He's under treatment for it. Never mind them. They don't understand the delicacy of your position. We know how delicate it is, don't we? I should think we did. How a nobleman of your importance can do it at all is a thing I never can, never shall understand.
So, something that struck me when I was reading this scene, which hadn't struck me before, is that little bit at the end when Páfugl-Fa says, oh, yeah, we know how delicate it is, don't we? And then Klók-Cow agrees. Yes, we are in a delicate position. And that's interesting to me because Páfugl-Fa doesn't often express any vulnerability, but in that moment he does. And he is confiding in Klók-Cow about the fact that actually, even though they've attained all this wealth and status, they could actually lose it at any time. And that this is so reflective of like people today as well, who run in these circles where they have to perform these societal norms, and if they fail at one or do something in a bit of an unusual way, they get like blacklisted from society. And I certainly felt this a lot as an autistic person, because I feel that sometimes when I do reach higher levels in society, or when I do make progress, often I can't ever really fit in to circles because I'm just very different to other people around me, and people feel uncomfortable around me. But I don't want to change my behaviour in order to fit in, but I end up doing it anyway. I end up masking, and that's really bad for me. And that's a lot of the reason why I have my own company, because I simply I'm not really able to fit anywhere else. And that's why I use my company as a welcoming place to other people who don't really feel like they fit very well in other companies. So that's what I am doing. But anyway, this scene, I mean, we get to meet the three little maids, and I think they all have quite distinct personalities. I don't think it's quite obvious yet what those personalities are. When it comes to Nayeon, we just learn that she's just this ever so sweet, beautiful, very gentle person. And that's why one of my absolute pet peeves, and I know that most people listening to this will agree with me, if you don't, tell me why. When people read these lines with this fruitiness, which just automatically ages you. Oh, you're not going to kiss me in front of all these people. How many times have you seen a production where people do that? And it's like, these are meant to be teenagers. Why are you making them sound 100 years old? Like, just be gentle with the lines. You don't have to do it in that affected way. Just read the lines, man. I was very much inspired by my reading of Klók-Cow's line when he's a little bit nervous about Æthel-Rún coming on. Oh, yes, nice to have my opinion backed up, because yes, his position is so delicate. And he doesn't want to outwardly say to him, how dare you, leave at once, he just has to be quite polite, very good, take him away. This is an awkward situation for him. Klók-Cow is not good with confrontation. He is not good at all with confrontation. He's very good at expressing how he feels and what he wants, but when it comes to like a social situation where there's a lot of people around him and they're very much, and he's got the three girls kind of fawning over Æthel-Rún, he doesn't really quite know what to do with himself in a way. He just kind of wants him to be taken away. And we also get the idea here that Klók-Cow, he's not really that into Nayeon. It might be just that, he thinks, oh, she's quite pretty, I suppose I'll marry her. It seems like he really wants to like Nayeon, and he understands what other people find attractive about her. Pretty eyes, nice hair, taking little thing altogether, but he's not into her. He is not into this. But it's just that he can't lose her, because then he'll lose face, and his face is everything. When you're at that position in society, it can be taken away in a moment if you lose any face, and so he can't. He's in this really, really delicate situation, as he's saying to Páfugl-Fa at the end. So this scene is so clever. It's all about status, and that status being taken away. I know I was mentioning to Will in a couple of videos ago how it always seems to me when just reading this off the page, I do get a little bit of like a vibe between Páfugl-Fa and the auxiliary baritone. I feel like they would work quite well as a couple. I mean, it just doesn't need to be the case, but it just seems to me like Páfugl-Fa is like an older, possibly queer man who has absolutely no interest in women and is just like, oh, I don't know how to deal with you. Or, maybe he's autistic as well. It's like, it's like that social freeze where, like, you walk into a room and everyone's behaving in a certain way and you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do here. I shouldn't be here. Help. And it's like that situation. And you feel very bad for him here. Because I don't like it when he seems very smarmy and very up himself. I like it when he actually seems like kind of quite scared of the three little maids, because they're like running around him. Oh, it's alive, and he's like, oh, I can't talk to little girls. I can't do this. Go away. There's dears. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the following song, I mean, you know how much I love the following song. I mean, it's probably like one of my favourite GNS songs. I can't believe it came number 6. I mean, I may just put it a bit higher in the quartets or something. Sorry, Joanna. I know it doesn't have any quartet singing. Or maybe I'll just make it win the trios. What do you think about that? I'm just going to do a shout out for the joke. He played so beautifully on the Marine Parade. Yes, I think that was the name of the instrument. That is a hard line to deliver. The trouble is with these lines in the Mikado, I absolutely love them, but I think the reason that my judgment with the Mikado has been a little bit clouded in the last 10 years or so is because I've seen so many people reading these lines really badly. And by really badly, I mean that they are telegraphing the jokes to the audience. They're not actually believing what they're saying as characters. So that is a hard line to deliver, because like no one's that stupid. Obviously you just talk about the instrument. And so, like, when Pétikeen comes in with, on the Marine Parade, and then Naum's like, yes, I think that was the name of the instrument. I mean, I guess she's just a bit stupid and just pretending, oh yes, of course I remember. But it's quite a stretch, and that is a difficult line to say. But it is so important as characters to really believe what you're saying. And so when you hear it, yes, I think that was the name of the instrument, it's often delivered in like a admonishing way towards Pétikeen, which I guess it maybe could work, but Naum's meant to be so sweet and gentle and so innocent. And so I don't like it when the joke is told to the audience, like, this is a joke here, laugh at this. And that's how I feel like this line is sometimes delivered. But yeah, so even if the line is difficult, I do think a lot of thought has to go into this scene with how you're going to say the lines, but when it's done well, love it.
Naum, at last we are alone. I have sought you night and day for 3 weeks in the belief that your guardian was beheaded, and I find that you are about to be married to him this afternoon.
Alas, yes.
But you do not love him.
Alas, no.
Modified rapture. But why do you not refuse him?
What good would that do? He's my guardian, and he wouldn't let me marry you.
But I would wait until you were of age.
You forget that in Catan, girls do not arrive at years of discretion until they are 50.
True. From 17 to 49 are considered years of indiscretion.
Besides, a wandering minstrel who plays a wind instrument outside tea-houses is hardly a fitting husband for the ward of a Lord High Executioner.
But shall I tell her?
Yes. She will not betray me.
What if it should prove that after all I am no musician?
There! I was certain of it directly I heard you play.
What if it should prove that I am none other than the son of His Majesty the Mikado?
The son of the Mikado? But why is your Highness disguised? And what has your Highness done? And will your Highness promise never to do it again?
Some years ago, I had the misfortune to captivate Kotitska, an elderly lady of my father's court. She misconstrued my customary affability into expressions of affection and claimed me in marriage under my father's law. My father, the Lucius Junius Brutus of his race, ordered me to marry her within a week or perish ignominiously on the scaffold. That night, I fled his court, and, assuming the disguise of a second trombone, I joined the band in which you found me when I had the happiness of seeing you.
If you please, I think your Highness had better not come too near. The laws against flirting are excessively severe.
But we are quite alone,
and nobody can see us.
Still, that doesn't make it right. To flirt is capital.
It is capital.
And we must obey the law.
Deuce take the law!
I wish it would, but it won't.
If it were not for that, how happy we might be.
Happy indeed.
If it were not for the law, we should now be sitting side by side. Like that. Instead of being obliged to sit half a mile off. Like that. We should be gazing into each other's eyes. Like that. Breathing sighs of unutterable love. Ah, like that. With our arms around each other's waists. Like that. If it wasn't for the law. If it wasn't for the law. As it is, of course, we couldn't do anything of the kind. Not for worlds. Being engaged to Klók-Cow, you know. Being engaged to Klók-Cow.
I'm just going to put this out there. This may be the best scene in the canon. I mean, there's 3, maybe 4 scenes in this opera I think they're probably just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Patience and Grosvenor scene, that was obviously really, really good. I'm trying to think of ones in other operas that matched the level of this one. But my gosh, it's got everything. It's so funny. But the reason it's funny is because it's so earnest. And the earnestness is over stuff that's so ridiculous. So for a start, Æthel-Rún has this whole crazy backstory about being the son of the Mikado. And just importantly, they really, really love each other. I think people often forget that when they're on stage, you know? Sometimes people think, oh, these are comic operas, it's just silly. But these two have a very, very sweet and honest relationship. Yes, she will not betray me. He tells her this almost without hesitation. He tells her about being the son of the Mikado because he trusts her that much. That is a level of his feelings for her. And we get to learn a little bit of their backstory, and we get to hear how they both feel about the situation. It's truly beautiful. And the thing is, there's nothing in that scene that the characters themselves find funny, which brings me back to what I was saying before about when actors telegraph the funniness to the audience. How many times have you heard that line? There, I was certain of it. Directly I heard you play. How often have you heard it delivered like that? Can you stop doing that? Anyone who's planning to play Naum, or, you know, the other name that she is called, anyone who's going to play her soon, please don't do that. Please don't. Because what you're doing there is you're saying, I cannot, as an actor, make this character convincing. I cannot convince you that the words I'm saying are true, so it's a cop-out. That's what it reads to me as an actor. It reads as a cop-out. So please stop doing that. And to me, this isn't even like a subjective thing. It's not even, oh, I like some things but other people like other things. That's just the wrong way of reading the line. I'm not even going to say I'm sorry it's true. I'm just going to say it's true because it is true. And just so many one-liners in this. Alas, yes. Alas, no. Modified rapture, which I'm sure everyone knows this story, but it apparently came from the fact that Gilbert had written the line rapture, but the actor playing this part, when he did it in rehearsals, went rapture, and Gilbert from the store said modified rapture, like implying it should be a little bit less, but then the actor went modified rapture. And then it stayed in, and I think that's so funny. Modified rapture. Again, it's not a thing that a person would actually say, but if you say it as if you truly do mean it, that's when I think it's the funniest. Am I wrong? Do you disagree with me? Do you think it's funny when people do go, there, I was certain of it, directly I heard you play? Or, there, I was certain of it, directly I heard you play. What's better? It's just obvious to me. But, you know, I am autistic, so I do find weird things funny. In Catan, girls do not arrive at years of discretion until they are 50. It's just... It's how Gilbert can make you laugh at literally every single line, but these two characters are actually having like a very distressing and emotional conversation that has really high stakes for both of them. That's just what makes it so utterly perfect. And the misunderstanding over the word capital as well. To flirt is capital, meaning it's a capital offence, and then Æthel-Rún, it is capital. Like, yeah, I agree, it's great. Deuce take the law. I wish it was, but it won't. It's just like it's just like misunderstandings of language I find so pleasing. And the whole sitting side by side, breathing sighs unutterable love, like that. It's the earnestness behind it. It's such a ridiculous situation. Like this is what I would be doing if it wasn't for the law. Like the thing I'm literally doing right now. It's set me side by side like that. You know, I would do this if it wasn't for the law, proceeds to do the thing. It's classic. It's classic humour. It's... So, like, honestly, I think that this is a contender for one of the best scenes in the canon. It's certainly always been one of my favourite scenes to perform as an actor. I can't really think of any scene that I have had more fun on stage, apart from maybe the Patience Grosvenor scene, when I did that a few years ago. That was amazing. But this, when it comes to duologues, this is way up there. There she goes. To think how entirely my future happiness is wrapped up in that little parcel. Really, it hardly seems worthwhile. Oh, matrimony! Now what is it? Can't you see I'm soliloquising? You have interrupted an apostrophe, sir. I am the bearer of a letter from His Majesty the Mikado. A letter from the Mikado? What in the world can he have to say to me? Ah. Here it is at last. I thought it would come sooner or later. The Mikado is struck by the fact that no executions have taken place in Anarapo for a year, and decrees that unless somebody is beheaded within 1 month, the post of Lord High Executioner shall be abolished, and the city reduced to the rank of a village. But that would involve us all in irretrievable ruin. Yes, there is no help for it. I shall have to execute somebody at once. The only question is, who shall it be? Well, it seems unkind to say so, but as you're already under sentence of death for flirting, everything seems to point to you. To me? What are you talking about? I can't execute myself. Why not? Why not? Because, in the first place, self-decapitation is an extremely difficult, not to say dangerous thing to attempt. And in the second, it's suicide. And suicide is a capital offence. That is so, no doubt. We might reserve that point. True, it could be argued 6 months hence before the full court. Besides, I don't see how a man can cut off his own head. A man might try. Even if he only succeeded in cutting it half off, that would be something. It would be taken as an earnest of your desire to comply with the imperial will. No, pardon me, there I am adamant as official headsman. My reputation is at stake, and I can't consent to embark on a professional operation unless I see my way to a successful result. This professional conscientiousness is highly creditable to you, but it places us in a very awkward position. My good sir, the awkwardness of your position is grace itself compared with that of a man engaged in the act of cutting off his own head. I'm afraid that unless we find a substitute... A substitute? Oh, certainly. Nothing easier. Páfugl-Fa, I appoint you Lord High Substitute. I should be delighted. Such an appointment would realise my fondest dreams. But no, I must set bounds to my insatiable ambition. What a great scene. I'm going to say that after every scene. What a great scene. Páfugl-Fa here. What he says at the end, you know, it occurred to me in that reading that it's like possibly he genuinely means that. Like, oh, yes, that would be a great honour. That would be such an honour for me to do. And like what an honour it would be to die for my town. No, but I did say I was gonna not be so ambitious. I did say that I was going to take a back seat. And what an interesting character would that be if he meant that? And again, another thing that Will mentioned back in our Paterols video. Oh, no, pardon me, but there I am adamant. Klók-Cow, I think, genuinely means that there. Like, yes, of course he's terrified, and of course he's trying to find a way out of this mess, but on that point, it doesn't strike him to make an excuse, because he already knows that he cannot possibly perform an action and then, like, leave it half done, because then his reputation would be at stake. And so even if he's dead, his reputation is actually more important than that. So I think that he's probably got in the back of his mind that even if he ends up dying, at least his reputation will be intact, but this way it wouldn't be. So, there, I am adamant I will not do that. And I think he genuinely means that. And it's always funnier if people genuinely mean what they're saying. And I love the aforementioned line that I mentioned a couple of videos ago. Even if only succeeded in cutting it half off, that would be something. It's such a funny line. Self-decapitation is an extremely difficult, not to say dangerous thing to attempt, which is true. One of the funniest lines in the canon, again, I'm going to do a video of one-liners, but one of the funniest lines, "My good sir, the awkwardness of your position is grace itself compared with that of a man engaged in the act of cutting off his own head." Because it's just the way they manage to say things which are so obviously true in such a matter-of-fact way that are about these huge life and death situations. And there's several in this opera, several amazing one-liners. I would say that maybe if I'm doing the top 50 one-liners in GNS, the Mikado probably has 20 of them. Maybe more. We'll see when I make that video. But yeah, this is a really cracking scene. I don't think it's maybe quite as good as the one that follows it. I think the one between Klók-Cow and Æthel-Rún is another massive favourite. So let us settle down and grab a cup of tea and watch that scene.
This is simply appalling. I, who allowed myself to be respited at the last moment simply in order to benefit my native town, am now required to die within a month, and that by a man whom I have loaded with honours. Is this public gratitude? Is this... Go away, sir, how dare you? Am I never to be permitted to soliloquise?
Oh, go on. Don't mind me.
What are you going to do with that rope?
I am about to terminate an unendurable existence.
Terminate your existence? No nonsense. What for?
Because you are going to marry the girl I adore.
Nonsense, sir. I won't permit it. I am a humane man, and if you attempt anything of the kind, I shall order your instant arrest. Come, sir, desist at once, or I summon my guard.
That's absurd. If you attempt to raise an alarm, I instantly perform the happy dispatch with this dagger.
No, don't do that. This is horrible. Why, you cold-blooded scoundrel, are you aware that in taking your life, you are committing a crime which is... Oh... substitute.
What's the matter?
Is it absolutely certain that you are resolved to die?
Absolutely.
Will nothing shake your resolution?
Nothing.
Threats, entreaties, prayers, all useless?
All. My mind is made up.
Then, if you really mean what you say, and if you are absolutely resolved to die, and if nothing whatever will shake your determination, don't spoil yourself by committing suicide, but be beheaded handsomely at the hands of the public executioner.
I don't see how that would benefit me.
You don't? Observe. You'll have a month to live, and you'll live like a fighting cock at my expense. When the day comes, there'll be a grand public ceremonial. You'll be the central figure. No one will attempt to deprive you of that distinction. There'll be a procession, bands, dead march, bells tolling, all the girls in tears. And I am distracted. Then, when it's all over, general rejoicings and a display of fireworks in the evening.
You won't see them, of course, but they'll be there all the same.
Do you think Niam would really be distracted at my death?
I am convinced of it. Bless you. She's the most tender-hearted little creature alive.
I should be sorry to cause her pain. Perhaps, after all, if I were to withdraw from Catan and travel in Europe for a couple of years, I might contrive to forget her.
Oh, I don't think you could forget Niam so easily. And, after all, what is more miserable than a love-blighted life?
True.
Life without Niam? Why, it seems absurd.
And yet there are a good many people in the world who have to endure it.
Poor devils, yes. You are quite right not to be of their number.
I won't be of their number,
Noble fellow.
I'll tell you how we'll manage it. Let me marry Niam tomorrow, and in a month you may behead me.
No, I draw the line at Niam.
Very good. If you can draw the line, then so can I.
Stop, listen 1 moment. Be reasonable. How can I consent to your marrying Niam if I'm going to marry her myself?
My good friend, she'll be a widow in a month and you can marry her then.
That's true, of course, I quite see that. But, dear me, my position during the next month will be most unpleasant.
Not half so unpleasant as my position at the end of it.
But, dear me, well, I agree. After all, it's only putting off my wedding for a month. But you won't prejudice her against me, will you? You see, I've educated her to be my wife. She's been taught to regard me as a wise and good man. Now, I shouldn't like her views on that point disturbed.
Trust me, she will never learn the truth from me.
So I am reminded of the tenor roles video that I did with David Woods, where Frederick ended up as number 1. And, you know, I think that's perfectly valid. I think people really love Frederick, but I do honestly think that and I think Hilarion was my number 1, but maybe that's a bit silly. Æthel-Rún came number 2 in that list, and I would personally put him quite a bit above Frederick. I think he is an absolutely amazing part, and he really comes into his own in this scene because he's so dry and so earnest and so fearless. It's such a contrast with Klók-Cow because he is not at all scared. Æthel-Rún is not scared at one point in his opera because he knows exactly what he wants and he's willing to put everything on the line to get that thing, and that is Niam. And that is incredibly noble and courageous in a way that Klók-Cow is just not. It's just the complete opposite. But also Æthel-Rún isn't maybe the brightest, or is he? Well, he has the idea to marry Niam, so actually maybe that is quite a clever idea that he has. But he also has one of these incredible one-liners, not half so unpleasant as my position at the end of it. And one of my favourite lines is, but yet there are a good many people in the world who have to endure it. And I actually think that his lines are funnier than Klók-Cow's lines in this scene. But then there's such darkness in this scene as well. The whole scene involves Klók-Cow at first. It's like, oh no, I don't want you to unalive yourself in front of me, but it's more from squeamishness than actual kind of empathy. Though he does seem to have empathy a bit later. But it's all like, oh no, I don't want to see that. No, guards, come on, guards. But then as soon as he realises that he can use this to his advantage, he actually then ends up having to convince him to unalive himself. Oh no, well you couldn't live without Niam. I mean, that seems absurd. It's really dark and horrifying how, because I know it seems funny in the context of the opera, but if Klók-Cow is to play that in such a way that switch when he realises, oh, I actually may lose him, he actually may not unalive himself, he actually may be going to try and get over her, he then is in a position where he has to convince a person to try and unalive himself. And that is horrifying. This guy, he's the most selfish guy. The most selfish, cowardly guy ever. He's just... Yes, Æthel-Rún had already resolve to do it, but there was a point there where he thinks, oh, I might forget her actually if I were just to travel the world and, you know, have some more experiences. Like, no, oh god. That's, to me, that is the funniest part of the thing, because it's just so dark. Oh, you are quite right not to be of their number, and that manipulation. It's so horrifying. Would you ever have thought that a situation in where one person was trying to convince another person to unalive themselves, would you ever think you'd laugh at that? But the thing is, I think the reason we laugh at it is because it is just so horrifying. Because it's just reflective of Klók-Cow's cowardice. He's not a bad guy. He's not malicious. He doesn't want to hurt Æthel-Rún or anyone else. He is completely out for himself, and he's just willing to say anything in order to save his own skin, and that is just hilarious. I must admit, actually, I don't so much like the "trust me, she shall never learn the truth from me," because it feels, after that scene where Æthel-Rún has been very matter-of-fact, it seems like quite heavy. And I suppose you can get around that by delivering it in a similar matter-of-fact way, but it does seem very like, ooh, in a way that he's not been like that before. He's not been at all sassy before. He's just been very gentle. So I must admit, I do find that line not perfect. So that's one flaw that I thought of so far. The plan here is amazing. And one of my favourite lines, again in the canon, a display of fireworks in the evening. And the realisation, you won't be there to see them, of course, but they'll be there also. Why would Æthel-Rún care about the fact that there are fireworks after he's dead? He wouldn't. It's so absurd. The absurdity of this is just so utterly, utterly pleasing to me. Ugh.
Yes, I am indeed beautiful. Sometimes I sit and wonder, in my artless Catanese way, why it is that I am so much more attractive than anybody else in the whole world. Can this be vanity? No. Nature is lovely and rejoices in her loveliness. I am a child of nature and take after my mother.
So yeah, that is how that scene is done. I give good Niam, and you should hire me to play this role, because no one does this as well as I do, and I feel like I can say that with utter confidence. Do you agree? Because yes, Kitty agrees, and I wouldn't say that about every part. I've certainly not nailed every part. But I think when it comes to Julia and the Grand Duke, and I think when it comes to Niam, just hire me. Just hire me. Look at that. Watch that scene again. Hire me. But anyway, yeah, this I say it's a dialogue. It's a monologue. It's just perfect. It's comic. It's emotional. It's earnest. It tells us so much about who she is and her character, as does the following aria. And it's just such a gentle moment to ease you into the act, but is also hilarious. And in that way, you know, again, coming back to this, the reason I think a lot of people maybe don't think the Mikado is very good is because people read these lines like, yes, I am indeed beautiful. Like, why are you doing that? I'm saying funny lines because I'm in a Gilbert and Sullivan show, and nothing in a Gilbert and Sullivan show should ever be taken seriously. Believe the lines you'll say.
Yes, everything seems to smile upon me. I am to be married today to the man I love best, and I believe I am the very happiest girl in Catan. The happiest girl indeed, for she is indeed to be envied who has attained happiness in all but perfection. In all but perfection? Well, dear, it can't be denied that the fact that your husband is to be beheaded in a month is, in its way, a drawback. It does seem to take the top off it, you know. I don't know about that. It all depends. At all events, he will find it a drawback.
Not necessarily, bless you, it all depends. I think it very indelicate of you to refer to such a subject on such a day. If my married happiness is to be
cut short.
well, cut short in a month,
Can't you let me forget it?
Niam in tears and on her wedding morn. They've been reminding me that in a month you're to be beheaded. Yes, we've been reminding her that you're to be beheaded. It's quite true, you know. You are to be beheaded. How some bridegrooms would be depressed by this sort of thing. A month? Well, what's a month? Bah! These divisions of time are purely arbitrary. Who says that 24 hours make a day? There's a popular impression to that effect. Then we'll efface it. We'll call each second a minute, each minute an hour, each hour a day, and each day a year. At that rate, we've about 30 years of married happiness before us.
And at that rate, this interview has already lasted 4 hours and 3/4.
Yes, how time flies when one is thoroughly enjoying oneself. That's the way to look at it. Don't let's be downhearted. There's a silver lining to every cloud. Certainly, let's be perfectly happy. By all means, let's thoroughly enjoy ourselves. It's absurd to cry. Quite ridiculous. So this scene has really big memories for me. I love this scene most of all because it reminds me of one of the most affirming moments I've ever had on stage when it comes to like my instincts and my comic timing. So when I played the middle mezzo at the festival in 2011, when I delivered that line, and at this rate, because I played it very airheaded like that. So I don't know if I'd do that again, but you know, the way I delivered that, and at that rate, this interview has already lasted 4 hours and 3/4, and then just like walked off. I actually got like a round of applause when I left the stage, and I couldn't believe it. I was so happy because up until that point, I didn't really have much belief in myself. I was actually going through like a really low point in my belief of my talent and my instincts, but that just proved to me, and right down to like the very moment that I decided to leave as well, because I got like several laughs. And you know, I'm not just blowing my own trumpet here to like make a point about how great I am. I'm just trying to let you know that, you know, there've been many moments throughout my GNS career, throughout my professional and my amateur kind of acting, singing career, where I've been really down about myself, but then that's often been followed by a moment of big affirmation. And that's what that was for me, because I felt like, wow, the audience are on my side and I'm really enjoying myself. And that it was just a massive confidence boost for me. And so if you were in the audience for that show and you clapped, thank you very much for that. That made me feel really, really good. It really boosted my confidence and it was great for me. It was a big step up in my performing career, because then from that point onwards I started playing all the big parts. I think I got Constance the year after that, and then I just got more and more, and so that was really where it started for me, that line. So this scene I have extremely fond memories of. And oh god, that middle mezzo part, she is such a brilliant part. I know she only has like a few lines, she's not really in that many songs, but she's such a great part. She's brilliant, because you can just make her whatever you want her to be. And the fact that she's delivering these lines, the way I was playing it just now, I was trying something a bit different. I was trying it as if she totally is just oblivion, she's accidentally saying these cut short, and she's not intending to upset Niam at all, but she's just kind of doing it by mistake. And in this time I did it very earnestly, like cut short. But the way I played it back, you know, in 2011, cut short, you know,
there's so many ways you can play this part, and she's such a lovely part. But I would say this scene is pretty much all about her, and then the bit where Æthel-Rún comes on and he goes, yes, you ought to be beheaded. Yes, that's right, we're reminding her that you ought to be beheaded. It's true, you know, you are to be beheaded. Very funny. What's a month? It's funny. I considered, what if Æthel-Rún is asking that as a philosophical question? You know, a month? What's a month? There's a popular impression to that effect. That's another line that's quite hard to deliver because people naturally go, there's a popular impression to that effect. And it's just, there's a popular impression to that effect. You know, there's ways you can read that line earnestly without making your voice sound silly that I think are better. But yeah, cracking scene. Let's move on to the next one.
Go on. Don't mind me.
I'm afraid we're distressing you.
Never mind, I must get used to it. Only please do it by degrees. Begin by putting your arm round her waist. There. Let me get used to that first.
Oh, wouldn't you like to retire? It must pain you to see us so affectionate together.
No, I must learn to bear it. Now, oblige me by allowing her head to rest on your shoulder.
Like that.
I am much obliged to you. Now, kiss her. Thank you! It's simple torture.
Come, bear up. After all, it's only for a month.
No. It's no use deluding oneself with false hopes.
What do you mean?
My child. My poor child. How shall I break it to her? My little bride that was to have been.
Was to have been?
Yes. You never can be mine.
I'm so glad.
No. I've just ascertained that, by the Mikado's law, when a married man is beheaded, his wife is buried alive.
Buried alive?
Buried alive. It's the most unpleasant death.
But whom did you get that from?
Oh, from Páfugl-Fa. He's my solicitor.
But he may be mistaken.
So I thought. So I consulted the Attorney General, the Lord Chief Justice, the Master of the Rolls, the Judge Ordinary, and the Lord Chancellor. They're all of the same opinion. Never knew so much unanimity on a point of law in my life.
But stop a bit. This law has never been put in force.
Not yet. You see, flirting is the only crime punishable with decapitation, and married men never flirt.
Of course they don't. I quite forgot that. Well, I suppose I may take it that my dream of happiness is at an end. Darling, I don't want to appear selfish, and I love you with all my heart. I don't suppose I shall ever love anybody else half as much. But when I agreed to marry you, my own, I had no idea, pet, that I should have to be buried alive in a month. Nor I. It's the very first I've heard of it. It makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does make a difference.
You see, burial alive, it's such a stuffy death.
I call it a beast of a death.
You see my difficulty, don't you?
Yes, and I see my own. If I insist on you carrying out your promise, I doom you to a hideous death. If I release you, you marry Klók-Cow at once.
And again, such a wonderful scene full of these iconic lines and just such tenderness between Æthel-Rún and Niam. They're just such a sweet couple, and the way that she tries to break it to him gently, darling, I don't want to appear selfish, you know. And again, you see that delivered all the time, like, darling, I don't want to appear selfish. No, they love each other, and this is hard for them. Again, the humour comes from their earnestness and the ridiculousness of this situation. And, Klók-Cow, like, his cowardice is also, like, his cowardice exists kind of in addition to this total selfishness, where he is sad. I think he is genuinely sad in this scene because he is thinking, she's going to be buried alive, so I won't get to marry her. So that's what he's sad about. I don't think he's actually, like, sad about the fact that she might have been buried alive. Because he does have a bit of empathy, but he does think more of himself. And I think in this scene, he's purely thinking of himself. Oh no, you never can be mine. Oh no. So he's very much thinking that these two people are both going to be dead in a month, but he's the victim here. That's why it's so funny to me. But then they're just so shocked, like, buried alive? What? Yes, buried alive. I thought I'd mention it. And that brings me to, again, one of my favourite one-liners in the canon. Well, it's actually it's a two-liner, this one. But married men never flirt. Of course they don't. I quite forgot that. Because it's so silly, because again, it has to be delivered with earnestness in order for it to be funny. Because if you telegraph, of course they don't. I quite forgot that. Why would you ever deliver it that way if you have any choice? Believe it. Believe the line. The line's there to be believed. And Æthel-Rún is such a gentle, beautiful character that he really is that innocent. He's that innocent. He doesn't think married men ever flirt. I don't even think that Klók-Cow does. But I mean, he's kind of asexual as well, isn't he? Perhaps. So he doesn't really know too much about flirting. Then again, he was sentenced to death for flirting. This is a thing that I think we all forget about. We forget that Klók-Cow was actually condemned to death for flirting initially, but then he doesn't really seem that interested in Niam, does he? So who was he flirting with? Maybe it was Niam, maybe he felt pressured to, or maybe he just felt like he should. I don't know, it's really interesting because he doesn't really seem that into her. But he also flirted knowing that flirting was a crime punishable by death. So that's a weird thing. Who do we think Klók-Cow flirted with? It makes a difference, doesn't it? So yeah, I think that considering that this is surrounded by such incredible scenes, I feel like this one maybe isn't so full of iconicness as maybe some of the other ones are. But it does have some amazing moments in it, like that. It's such a callback to the gazing into each other's eyes like that. That's a little callback to what they were doing in the first act, which is so nice. And yes, well, I don't think this is so full of laugh out loud moments as some of the other scenes. It's perfect the way it is. I wouldn't change a thing about it, apart from the names. And again, a callback to Páfugl-Fa. He's my solicitor. Well, then I contacted this one and this one and this one. So again, we're bringing back that joke again, and it becomes relevant. So this ridiculous plot point about this man having all these roles, like, it keeps being relevant again and again in the story, and every time it becomes relevant, we have a little laugh about it because we remember. And it's just so perfectly put together, all these puzzle pieces. It's just perfect.
My poor boy. I'm really very sorry for you. Thanks, old fellow, I'm sure you are. You see, I'm quite helpless. I quite see that. I can't conceive of anything more distressing than to have one's marriage broken off at the last moment. But you shan't be disappointed of a wedding. You shall come to mine. It's awfully kind of you, but that's impossible. Why so? Today I die. What do you mean? I can't live without Niam. This afternoon I perform the Happy Dispatch. No, pardon me, I can't allow that. Why not? Why, hang it all, you're under contract to die by the hand of the public executioner in a month's time. If you kill yourself, what's to become of me? Why, I shall have to be executed in your place. It would certainly seem so.
Now then, Lord Mayor, what is it? The Mikado and his suite are approaching the city and will be here in 10 minutes.
The Mikado? He's coming to see whether his orders are being carried out. Now look here, you know, this is getting serious. A bargain's a bargain, and you really mustn't frustrate the ends of justice by committing suicide. As a man of honour and a gentleman, you are bound to die ignominiously by the hands of the public executioner. Very well then, behead me. What, now? Certainly, at once. Chop it off, chop it off. My good sir, I don't go about prepared to execute a gentleman at a moment's notice. Why, I never even killed a bluebottle. Still, as Lord High Executioner... My good sir, as Lord High Executioner, I've got to behead him in a month. I'm not ready yet.
I don't know how it's done. I'm going to take lessons. I mean to begin with a guinea pig and work my way through the animal kingdom till I come to a second trombone. Why, you don't suppose that, as a humane man, I'd have accepted the post of Lord High Executioner if I hadn't thought the duties were purely nominal? I can't kill you. I can't kill anything. I can't kill anybody. Come, my poor fellow. We all have unpleasant duties to discharge at times. After all, what is it? If I don't mind, why should you? Remember, sooner or later it must be done. Must it? I'm not so sure about that. What do you mean? Why should I kill you when making an affidavit that you've been executed will do just as well? Here are plenty of witnesses. The Lord Chief Justice, Lord High Admiral, Commander-in-Chief, Secretary of State for the Home Department, First Lord of the Treasury and Chief Commissioner of Police. But where are they? There they are. They'll all swear to it, won't you? Am I to understand that all of us high officers of state are required to perjure ourselves to ensure your safety? Why not? You'll be grossly insulted as usual. Will the insult be cash down or at a date? It'll be a ready money transaction. Well, it'll be a useful discipline. Very good. Choose your fiction and I'll endorse it. Ha ha! Family pride. How do you like that, my buck? But I tell you, life without Niam... Niam! Bother Niam! Here, Commissioner! Go and fetch Niam. Take Niam and marry Niam, only go away and never come back again. Here she is. Niam, are you particularly busy? Not particularly. You 5 minutes to spare? Yes. Then go along with His Grace, the Archbishop of Anarapo. He'll marry you at once. But if I'm to be buried alive... Now don't ask any questions, but do as I tell you, and Æthel-Rún will explain all. But one moment, not for words! Here comes the Mikado, no doubt to ascertain whether I've obeyed his decree, and if he finds you alive, I shall have the greatest difficulty in persuading him that I've beheaded you. Close thing that, for here he comes. So I'm going to talk again about the very first Gilbert and Sullivan production that I ever saw. And, you know, out of interest, like one of my goals at some point in my life is to meet anybody that was involved in this show, because the fact that that was the first show I ever saw and it left such an impression on me because everybody in it was so good and they were so dry, like it was read a lot like the way I'm reading it. And I don't know if it was because the people in it kind of weren't actors, but actually that's good. It's kind of good for this kind of thing. You like want people that are just very natural and just read these lines with utter conviction. But if you went to the University of Nottingham and you were in a production of the Mikado, I guess it would have been like 2003, maybe 2002, like something like that, probably 2002. If you were in that production of the Mikado, like you were the absolute foundation of my love for Gilbert and Sullivan. Because one thing that I really remember from that production, for some reason they changed 10 minutes to 3 minutes, I think. But the Páfugl-Fa, he comes in, the Mikado and his suite are approaching the city and will be here in 3 minutes. And there was something about the way he said it. And the audience loved it. And I remember just thinking that was a ridiculous line. And just in general, there's so much going on in this scene. I love how there are so many characters coming in and out. There's so much high stakes. There's so much energy. And you get to see this really vulnerable side of Klók-Cow as well. When he realises that after all that anxiety leading to this position, he has actually been given a complete get out of jail free card. He has been told, right, yeah, behead me. And that will solve literally all of his problems. It wouldn't, because he'd then be actually put to death at the end, but as far as he knows at this point, doing that would solve all of his problems. But the fact that he cannot bring himself to kill another person, even if it would save his own life. I mean, maybe it's down to him being squeamish, but I like to think that it is actually
down to him not wanting to kill somebody. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't have it in him. He knows Æthel-Rún doesn't deserve it. He can't bring himself to end the life of another person. And ultimately, that is what saves his life at the end of the show, because otherwise he would have died. And Kutilska would have died with him if, she'd married him. But yes, she would have been buried alive, I guess. Kutilska would have been buried alive. That's a thought, isn't it? But we need to think about that is so important. The fact that Klók-Cow doesn't want to kill anybody is what saves his life. It's what drives the plot forward. It's just basically what saves everyone. They don't realise it at that point, but that has saved them all. That could very easily have been the point where he signed his own death warrant, effectively. But he doesn't. And it's seeing him suddenly really vulnerable, like, I can't kill you. Like, I'm going to die because I can't kill anybody. Even if they brought someone else in instead for him to kill, he can't do it. And that is something like really moving about that. And the fact that Æthel-Rún it's so funny, the way he's doing his matter-of-fact thing again. And it's, I don't want to say it's courageous to kind of want to die. Of course, that's not courageous in and of itself, but just his utter matter-of-factness through all of this is just such a contrast from Klók-Cow's cowardice. And especially when he's comforting Klók-Cow, it's like, oh, it's okay, I don't mind. Why should you? Like, he's the one comforting the person who is gonna kill him. I mean to start from a guinea pig and work my way through to a second trombone. What a ridiculous line. Like, can you imagine the mind of somebody who came up with a line like that? Is that a reference to the Sorcerer? There's a guinea pig and a sorcerer. Does Gilbert just love guinea pigs? I mean, they were really popular pets at that time. Like, the people loved guinea pigs as pets back in those days. I mean, they still do. But then just the quickness in which Klók-Cow comes up with this plan as well. Like, he's a very clever guy. He's really clever. And then he has to rope Páfugl-Fa in again with, bribing him. It'll be a ready money transaction. He's starting to get impatient with him now. This is where the status starts to change a bit. I think once Klók-Cow's kind of got through this, it does actually change him slightly. I think from this point onwards, he's no longer totally selfish, and he is actually starting to make decisions that will benefit the group. So he is actually in a group. He's in this little trio then for the next section, and then he's like in a quintet for a little bit. But he does have a character arc in this show. He realizes something about himself, and that changes the way he views other people. And suddenly he's not just the selfish coward that he was at the start. He's actually starting to work with people and have relationships with them, which I think is a beautiful thing. An honourable mention to Niam. Are you particularly busy? Not particularly. Do you have 5 minutes to spare? Yes. It's just the high stakes of the situation. Then it's like, dum-ba-dum-ba-dum. No, not particularly busy. Like, why would she be busy? What would she be doing? She's just had her marriage called off and gone off stage in tears and like, you busy? No, not really. I am honoured in being permitted to welcome Your Majesty. I guess the object of Your Majesty's visit, your wishes have been attended to. The execution has taken place. Oh, you've had an execution, have you? Yes. The coroner has just handed me his certificate. I am the coroner. And this is the certificate of his death. Ad honorable in the presence of the Lord Chancellor, Lord Chief Justice, Attorney General, Secretary of State for the Home Department, Lord Mayor and groom of the second floor front. They were all present, Your Majesty. I counted them myself. Very good house. I wish I'd been in time for the performance. A tough fellow he was too, a man of gigantic strength. His struggles were terrific. It was really a remarkable scene. Describe it. So yeah, I'm not going to say too much about this scene because I kind of group this together with the one that follows it, and not really much happens. I think you get to meet the Mikado, but you don't really get a sense of his character. I think, as I was saying at the start of this video, I was trying out a few various things with the Mikado. I still don't quite know in my mind like the best way of playing him, or indeed many of these parts. Indeed, Klók-Cow, Páfugl-Fa. I feel I could have got Æthel-Rún and Náum. I feel like I've really got them down. But the others, I'm really open to. Like, that's why I like to just go and watch these shows and see what other people do with them, because I'm like, yeah, that's how that part is played. But yeah, again, we get the joke about Páfugl-Fa having all these roles, and yes, that they were all present. I counted them myself. I am the because that starts off like a new joke, like I am X, I am Y, and that's just very, very funny. But yeah, there's not really anything that's particularly hilarious in this scene. It's a very short scene, but yeah, this threat that the Mikado has to have, even though he's quite a matter-of-fact guy, that is just funny in itself. It really was a remarkable scene. Describe it. Describe it. I don't know the best way of saying that line is, but I find that so funny. Describe it. It's just so stupid.
Oh, this is very interesting, and I should like to have seen it, but we came about a totally different matter. A year ago, my son, the heir to the throne of Catan, bolted from our imperial court.
Indeed.
Had he any reason to be dissatisfied with his position? None whatever. On the contrary, I was going to marry him. Yet he fled. I am surprised that he should have fled from one so lovely. That's not true. No. You hold that I am not beautiful because my face is plain. You know nothing. You are still unenlightened. Learn then that it is not in the face alone that beauty is to be sought. My face is unattractive. It is. But I have a left shoulder blade that is a miracle of loveliness. People come miles to see it. My right elbow has a fascination that few can resist. Allow me. It is on view Tuesdays and Fridays on presentation of visiting card. As for my circulation, it is the largest in the world. And yet he fled. And is now masquerading in this town disguised as a second trombone. A second trombone? Yes. Would it be troubling you too much if I asked you to produce him? He goes by the name of Æthel-Rún. Æthel-Rún. It's quite easy. That is to say, it's rather difficult. In point of fact, he's gone abroad. Gone abroad? His address? Knightsbridge. Ha! What's the matter? See here! His name, Æthel-Rún, beheaded this morning. Oh, where shall I find another? Dear, 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 this is very tiresome. My poor fellow, in your anxiety to carry out my wishes, you have beheaded the heir to the throne of Japan. I beg to offer an unqualified apology. I desire to associate myself with that expression of regret. We really hadn't the least notion. Of course you hadn't. How could you? Come, my good fellow, don't distress yourself. It was no fault of yours. If a man of exalted rank chooses to disguise himself as a second trombone, he must take the consequences. It really distresses me to see you take on so. I've no doubt he thoroughly deserved all he got. We are infinitely obliged to your majesty. Much obliged, your majesty. Very much obliged, your majesty. Obliged? Not a bit. Don't mention it. How could you tell? No, of course we couldn't tell who the gentleman really was. It wasn't written on his forehead, you know. It might have been written on his pocket handkerchief, but Catanese don't use pocket handkerchiefs. I forget the punishment for encompassing the death of the heir apparent. Punishment? Yes. Something lingering, with boiling oil in it, I fancy. Something of that sort. I think boiling oil occurs in it, but I'm not sure. I know it's something humorous, but lingering with either boiling oil or melted lead. Come, don't fret, I'm not a bit angry. If your majesty you will accept our assurance, we had no idea. Of course. I knew nothing about it. I wasn't there. That's the pathetic part about it. Unfortunately, the fool of an act says, encompassing the death of the heir apparent. There's not a word about a mistake. No. Or not knowing. No. Or having no notion. No. Or not being there. No. There should be, of course. Yes. But there isn't. Oh. That's the slovenly way in which these acts are always drawn. However, cheer up. It'll be all right. I'll have it altered next session. Now, let's see about your execution. Will after luncheon suit you? Can you wait till then? Oh, yes. We can wait till then. Then we'll make it after luncheon. I don't want any lunch. I'm really very sorry for you all. But it's an unjust world, and virtue is triumphant only in theatrical performances.
Another contender for, I think, my favourite scene in the canon. There is so much going on in this scene. I mean, for a start, you've got the whole thing with Kotilska saying about her left elbow and right shoulder blade, and yet he fled. So you get her introducing herself, and she's just so sassy and fabulous. I absolutely love Kotilska. She is my favourite alto role, as we've discussed. She has, I think, in the top 4. Oh no, I can't say that yet, because I know what's won the alto arias, but I can't tell you that yet. But I will let you know that her arias do very well. So yeah, she's got a lot of amazing material. But yeah, there's that whole thing. And then as soon as they realise that it was Æthel-Rún that he's killed, then all hell breaks loose. And then the Mikado, in his matter-of-factness, oh, don't fret, I'm not a bit angry, but let's talk about your execution. It's the fact that the Mikado, he doesn't seem to understand why they're upset. He thinks that, because in this world, and actually interesting enough, his son also seems to share that view that death is just not really that significant and important. Oh yeah, I'm going to die. Today I die. So maybe in the Mikado's world, in his mind, that people aren't really that frightened of death. Maybe he's raised just to not be that frightened of it. And actually, what's worse is somebody being angry with you. So it's like, oh no, it's okay. I mean, I have to kill you, but it's fine. I'm not angry. It's just like, oh god. And that's why it's so funny to the audience. I think I mentioned this when I talked about big bombs, small bombs, and the Grand Duke as well. When there's such a divide between people on stage as to how high the stakes are. So when the person in power, like their stake, they just have no stakes at all. And, you know, everything they say is just really matter of fact. But then the people below them, it's like, he's talking about their life and death and the funny lines that come out as a result of that. They're like, no, there should be, of course. Yes, but there isn't. Oh, no. It's the fact that he keeps teasing them, like inadvertently. I'm sure it's meant to be inadvertent. And they're falling over themselves to appeal to him. He's like, yeah, it's okay. I hear you. I hear you. It's a shame that you have to die, isn't it? You know? But it's like he's expecting them to just like accept it. As his son would have done. It's just bizarre. He's the most bizarre character, but I love him, and I can't decide if he's just really matter-of-fact and dry, and maybe, you know, again, like slightly autistic in a way, with just not really kind of understanding how other people may be emotionally affected by his words. Like unempathetic, perhaps, but like not in a evil way. But then maybe he is just like this absolute sociopath. So he's not malicious, he's just saying what the facts are, and this is just the law. Sorry. Doesn't even say, he does say, I'm really very sorry for you all. And then he says the line that Gilbert had like an egg version of in Thespis, you know, virtue only triumphs in the evening from 8 until 10. You know, it's amazing how he then brought this line back from the Mikado, then wrote like a whole song about it. It's amazing. Disguised as a second trombone. A second trombone! Yes, a second trombone. I forget the punishment for encompassing the death they are about. It's the fact that he says boiling oil like 4 times in it, and like every time you think, oh god, they're like going, oh god, oh god. There's something, I think it involves boiling oil, there's something humorous and lingering, because he has no idea the effects his words are having. I know it's something humorous but lingering with either boiling oil or melted lead. You know, it's just one of those. You know. It distresses me to see you take on so. Stop distressing. It's fine, you know. I don't want any lunch. What a cracking scene. Absolutely love this. I'm so sad that I spent so many years just thinking, oh, I just don't like the Mikado. It's irredeemable. And now I'm like, oh no. No, it's not. It's really not. Oh.
Well, a nice mess you've got us into with your nodding head and the deference due to a man of pedigree. Merely corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to an otherwise bald and unconvincing narrative. Corroborative detail indeed, corroborative fiddlestick. And you're just as bad as he is with your cock-and-a-bull stories about catching his eye and whistling an air, but that's so like you. You must put in your oar. But how about your big right arm? Yes, and your snicker-snee. Well, never mind that now. There's only one thing to be done. Æthel-Rún hasn't started yet. He must come to life again at once. Here he comes. Here, Æthel-Rún, I've got some good news for you. You're reprieved. Oh, but it's too late. I'm a dead man, and I'm off for my honeymoon. Nonsense! A terrible thing has just happened. It seems you're the son of the Mikado. Yes, but that happened quite some time ago. Is this the time for airy persiflage? Your father is here, and with Kotilska. My father? And with Kotilska? Yes, he wants you particularly. So does she. Oh, but he's married now. But bless my heart, what has that to do with it? Kotilska claims me in marriage, but I can't marry her because I'm married already. Consequently, she will insist on my execution, and if I'm executed, my wife will have to be buried alive. You see our difficulty? Yes, I don't know what's to be done. There's one chance for you. If you could persuade Kotilska to marry you, she would have no further claim on me, and in that case I could come to life without any fear of being put to death. I marry Kotilska. I really think it's the only course. But my good girl, have you seen her? She's something appalling. Ah, that's only her face. She has a left elbow which people come miles to see. I am told that her right heel is much admired by connoisseurs. My good sir, I decline to pin my heart upon any lady's right heel. It comes to this. While Kotilska is single, I prefer to be a disembodied spirit. When Kotilska is married, existence will be as welcome as the flowers in spring. So much like the song that follows this scene, this isn't like my favourite scene in the Mikado, but there's still some really lovely stuff in it. And I remember when I played Niam, you know, it was fun to go, oh, but he's married now, and you see our difficulty. There are some very silly little bits in it. And of course, this is the scene where in Topsy-Turvy they are rehearsing that scene. And one of my favourite bits in the film was, a terrible thing has just happened, Grossmith, you've become a Cockney. And corroborative. And yes, Bark, you've also failed to provide 2 actors. You can tell Mr. Lely that his services are no longer required. I love that film. I quote that film all the time. I don't really think this is like one of the funniest scenes. I think there's some lovely moments in it. And yes, and your snickersee. Well, never mind that now. You know, as in, he's okay to be a victim and talk about all the mistakes they made, but doesn't really want his mistakes to talk about. So yeah, he's still himself. Klók-Cow still has all these flaws that he needs to work on, but you know, he's working in a group now. He's actually talking to these people like equals. They're having a conversation, and that's really nice. So, and then the funny thing here is that Æthel-Rún does seem to think it is Klók-Cow's responsibility to fix this problem, and I suppose that is fair because he is the main driving force behind this whole deceit. It was his idea, and it wasn't really fair of the Mikado to kind of dump in Páfugl-Fa and Petty King in with him. But the fact that
it is kind of funny how, I mean, I would say I would set this in a world where anyone could marry anyone. So, but even in Victorian times, you know, Páfugl-Fa could easily have also married Cotilska. But in my universe, you know, Pettikane could have married Cotilska. Like, either of them could have been the one to flirt with her, but I don't think it would have worked. Because I think actually Klók-Cow and Cotilska work very well together. They have this natural chemistry and there's this automatic connection, which is really moving, which we'll talk about when we look at the next scene. But it is interesting to me how Æthel-Rún just assumes it's going to be Klók-Cow that solves this, and then everyone else just gets on board with that. But then Klók-Cow does actually accept that. He doesn't even consider, oh, someone else should do it. No, he does it. He does it for the team, and yes, he's saving himself, but he's also saving the other two, and that's to be commended. And I commend him for, yes, he's still being a victim and he's still having a whine about it in the following song, but he's really taking one for the team here. And it's lovely to see him starting to work together with these people. But yeah, I would say that if we are talking about weak points in the Mikado, like weak spots, this scene in the following song is maybe like my weakest point in the show. I don't think there's too many really hilarious bits in this, and the song isn't maybe as vibrant and interesting as some of the other ones, but I mean, it's still pretty darn good.
Cotilska! The miscreant who robbed me of my love, but vengeance pursues. They are heating the cauldron. Cotilska, behold a suppliant at your feet. Cotilska, mercy! Mercy? Had you mercy on him? See here, you have slain my love. He did not love me, but he would have loved me in time. I am an acquired taste. Only the educated palate can appreciate me. I was educating his palate when he left me. Well, he is dead, and where shall I find another? It takes years to train a man to love me. Am I to go through the weary round again and, at the same time, implore mercy for you who robbed me of my prey, I mean my pupil, just as his education was on the point of completion? Oh, where shall I find another? Here. Here. What? Cotilska, for years I have loved you with a white-hot passion that is slowly but surely consuming my very vitals. Ah, shrink not from me, if there is aught of woman's mercy in your heart. Turn not away from a lovesick suppliant whose every fibre thrills at your tiniest touch. True it is that, under a poor mask of disgust, I have endeavoured to conceal a passion whose inner fires are broiling the soul within me. But the fire will not be smothered. It defies all attempts at extinction, and, breaking forth, all the more eagerly for its long restraint, it declares itself in words that will not be weighed, that cannot be schooled, that should not be too severely criticised. Cotilska, I dare not hope for your love, but I will not live without it. You, whose hands still reek with the blood of my betrothed, dare to address words of passion to the woman you have so foully wronged. I do. Accept my love, or I perish on the spot. Go to! Who knows so well as I that no one yet ever died of a broken heart? You know not what you say. Listen.
Did he really die of love?
He really did.
All on account of a cruel little hen?
Yes.
Poor little chap.
It's an affecting tale, and quite true. I knew the bird intimately. Did you?
He must have been very fond of her.
His devotion was something extraordinary.
Poor little chap. And if I refuse you, will you go and do the same?
At once.
No, you mustn't. Anything but that. Oh, I'm a silly little goose.
You are. And
You won't hate me because I'm just a little teeny weeny wee bit bloodthirsty, will you?
Hate you? Oh, Kotilska, is there not beauty even in bloodthirstiness?
My idea exactly.
Ah, where am I? I've moved because there is cooking going on downstairs, and I didn't want to have to ask people to be quiet because they are cooking for me and I want to eat food, so I'm going to let them do that. So, yeah, I have combined these scenes into one just to talk about it because it's the same two people talking and it's one arc. So if we kind of loosely imagine that song is in the middle of it, the song On a Tree by a River, which I think came my number 2 of the baritone arias, but I believe it came to be number 4 overall, but I absolutely love that song. And it makes me want to cry when I listen to it. It's so... I get such feels with that song, such emotion. And just look at how he woos her. And yeah, we're missing the song, so like the major part of it is in the song, but still we are seeing her soften, and we're seeing him strengthen because he understands a little bit more about himself, and he understands how it is that he can maybe get her on his side and how he can draw her in. And I genuinely think that he does believe that it's possible to die of love, and maybe he's got some experience in this era. Maybe he knew of somebody. We have no idea what Klók-Cow's life was before this. We have absolutely no idea. And this is something where I feel that maybe he is the authority on, like maybe he does understand this in a way that Kotilska doesn't. And so he's trying to convince her. Yeah, it is possible. Like, that is how much I love you. And that is a lie. That is a lie at first, but do we think that he starts to maybe believe that over the course of this scene? Do we think that he actually falls in love with her over the course of this scene? I think that if it's played that way, that's lovely. I'm not saying it goes from 0 to completely head over heels in love, but does he start to be fond of her? Of course he does. You are a silly little goose. Is that a realization? Oh, we're going to have some fun together, actually. I think you're quite cool. I like you, Kotilska. I like you. You've a very good bargain at me, the thing he says at the end. Have you seen the 1966 Mikado, where at the end, they're so cute together. They're really sweet. If you watch just after he sings his line to her in the Act 2 finale, he's kind of being all cute with her, and she's you can see her softening, and it's just lovely. Her cold heart is melting. But this line that Klók-Cow says, "For years I have loved you with a white hot passion," etc. That line, just think about how well that was crafted. I mean, is it better than Rafe's line about the ganglion of irreconcilable antagonisms? I mean, it's not as advanced linguistically, but it's a similar kind of thing where it's amping up the tension, but I will not live without it. I mean, to be honest, I think I prefer Rafe's line because it's got that really amazing comic. I hope I make myself clear, lady, at the end of it. But this is just, it's absolutely epic. And I think you do, even though at this stage I think it is still a lie, you kind of forget it's a lie because of just the sheer beauty of the language. And the words that will not be weighed, that cannot be schooled, that should not be too severely criticised. Is that like a meta joke? Is Gilbert asking critics not to criticise his work too severely? Is that the joke there? I've always thought that was, but it's actually a question I've never asked anybody, so I don't know if other people think that. So tell me if you think that. What a great monologue. That monologue is just absolutely stupendous. Hate you? Oh, Kotilska, is there not beauty even in bloodthirstiness? They're gonna have fun together. I think this is a really, really sweet scene. Because I filmed this with Will, didn't I? I filmed this with Will in my Pata roll video, and I had a lovely time doing it with him then as well. I think this scene, I wouldn't actually place this maybe in the top 5 of these Mikado scenes. When I eventually do rank all the dialogue scenes, I will rank these kind of intuitively, but so I wouldn't say this belongs right up there with those 4 amazing ones that we've discussed, like the Æthel-Rún one, the Klók-Cow Æthel-Rún one at the end of Act 1, and then the scene where
Klók-Cow realises he can't kill anybody, and then the trio scene with the Mikado where it's like, yes, we can wait until after lunch, and like those four to me I think do seem to be in a bit of a league of their own, but this is still incredible and it moves me, and it can move me, and I wish that it did more often.
Now then, we've had a capital lunch and we're quite ready. Have all the painful preparations been made?
Your Majesty, all is prepared.
Then produce the unfortunate gentleman and his two well-meaning but misguided accomplices. Mercy! Mercy for Klók-Cow, mercy for Petikeen, mercy even for Páfugl-Fa. I beg your pardon, I don't think I quite caught that remark. Mercy even for Páfugl-Fa. Mercy! My husband that was to have been is dead, and I have just married this miserable object. No, you've not been long about it.
We were married before the registrar.
I am the registrar.
I see.
But the difficulty is that, as you have slain the heir apparent, the heir apparent is not slain. Bless my heart. My son.
And your daughter-in-law elected.
Traitor! You have deceived me. Yes, you are entitled to a little explanation, but I think you will give it better whole than in pieces. Your Majesty, it's like this. It is true that I had stated that I had killed Æthel-Rún. Yes, with most affecting particulars. Merely corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to a bald and... Will you refrain from putting in your oar? It's like this. When your Majesty says, let a thing be done, it's as good as done. Practically, it is done, because your Majesty's will is law. Your Majesty says, kill a gentleman, and a gentleman is told off to be killed. Consequently, that gentleman is as good as dead. Practically, he is dead. And if he is dead, why not say so? I see. Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory.
This is another example of the pre-Act 2 finale scene that is actually really good. When I think back to how clunky the Sorcerer one was and HMS Pinafore, Paris Presents doesn't really have one. And even Patience is a bit like, it's not quite so beautiful as the rest of the scenes in Patience. But this is just an absolute masterpiece of like, things are just getting solved left, right and centre. It's bringing at a really, really fast pace. But the difficulty is, as he said in the heir apparent, the heir apparent is not slain. Wow, you deceived me. But then it's like it's bam, 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 all these people rushing, and suddenly it all zooms right in on Klók-Cow. And at this point, he could still give an explanation that may result in a Mikado saying, no, it's not good enough, no, you will die now. And it won't be by decapitation, because of course the only crime punishable by decapitation is flirting. So it'll be, boiling oil. So at this point, they could all be killed. Nayeon will be buried alive. Like, it's so dangerous at this point for all of them. And they're all on the absolute edge of their seats. And Klók-Cow, the spotlight goes on him. Only he can save it. And then he stands up for himself with Páfugl-Fa. When he says, I'm merely artistic. No, I'm talking now. Will you refrain from putting in your oar? I've got this. And then his solution, his like philosophical solution, because he has got to know the Mikado just enough that he knows that this will work. He's hoping it'll work. And it's just like everyone's on the absolute edge of their seats here. Like, is everyone going to be okay? Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory. I knew that line was funny, but can you imagine? Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory. Humans don't speak like this. Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory than this. It's absolutely perfect. I beg your pardon, I don't think I quite caught that last remark. Mercy even for Páfugl-Fa. I remember the guy playing that part in my sister's version at Nottingham. He was just the absolute, he delivered that line, mercy even. Very, very funny. I am the registrar. I am the coroner. It's just this running jokes. It's really important that now, in hindsight, that scene is in there. That scene where Páfugl-Fa is listing all his jobs, and I'll come over here where the Chancellor can't hear us. That scene, because it keeps coming up again and again, and it actually is so woven into the plot, like way more than I thought it was. I mean, I knew it was a bit, but just it keeps cropping up over and over again in such hilarious ways, in ways that you kind of forget about it, and then you're reminded again, and it's hilarious, and then you're just leaving them in such a wonderful place, because I want to see what happens next. Like I want to see like Æthel-Rún and Niam having like a proper wedding reception. I want to see that party. I want to see how Klók-Cow manages to woo Kurtiska. I want to see how their relationship goes. I just kind of want to see how it all works out, because I just love these characters so much, and like I miss them. I miss them at the end of the show because I want to see more of them. I love them. I love these people. And so when people play them and don't really get into it, and they just think it's silly, so we don't have to take it seriously, it's like, no, like, please take these characters seriously. You know, you have been hired, or cast if it's an amateur show, you have been hired to be in a production of the Mikado, which boasts probably the finest characters. I mean, actually the jury's still out on that one. There are some really great characters in other operas as well, but it has one of the finest ensembles of characters I think there is, only rivaled by maybe Rodrigo, maybe even the Grand Duke, who knows. But this is such a fine ensemble of characters, and treat this with the respect it deserves. Be earnest with the lines, deliver them with conviction. I hope that when you've watched me perform these lines for you today, that you think, oh yeah, that maybe isn't how I've looked at the lines before, and actually now that you've looked at it in that way, maybe you'll agree that the Mikado is more than redeemable, and we should be doing it more. And there are so many ways of doing it that don't involve mentioning Japan, apart from the one time I said Japan in one of those scenes. You can change the names, and I know it sounds jarring. It's jarring to me as well, because these are characters that I know and love, and I'm used to the names. But I have said them so much now over the course of making the video and then this kind of explaining video that they're actually starting to become way less jarring for me, even just from saying them a lot over the last few days. So, and that can happen for everyone, like regardless of what names you call them. You will get over the jarringness, and all it means is that something that you love has, it's been twiddled in a very, very, very minor way, but because of that, it means that everyone can now enjoy this and not feel like their culture's being made fun of, regardless of whether or not that was Gilbert's intention. I kind of think it was, in a way. Not in a mean way. I don't think Gilbert was a bad guy for doing it. I just think he didn't really think it through very hard. And, maybe, and also remember as well that Gilbert wasn't around during the Second World War. And a lot of negative stuff happened to kind of Japanese Americans during and after the Second World War, like civilians who had literally nothing to do with the war at all. Gilbert wasn't around for that, so it's not his fault that there are subsequent cultural complications between America and Japanese people. That's not Gilbert's fault. But what we can do is we can make this piece something that everybody can enjoy and not have to feel like we're hurting people. And if we can perform the piece with just making minor changes in such a way that won't hurt anyone, then why not do it? Whether or not you agree, why wouldn't you just want to do that? They're such minor changes. What's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And a Mikado doesn't need to be set in Japan. That's not what makes the Mikado one of the best stories, if not the best story, in the GNS canon. And that's all I have to say about that. I may not understand or feel what the people who are affected by the Mikado are feeling, but I can listen. And maybe some of my audience should do the same. Ask people about stuff. People are usually really good at having conversations about stuff. Just ask. Thank you very much for watching this video. You guys may not even be aware, but I am now over halfway through this entire project. Isn't that nuts? So I've actually almost gone through like all of my character videos and all of my song videos when it comes to kind of alto arias, tenor arias, and like tenor rolls. I've only got a few more to go. I've got patter songs to go, and I think I've got mezzo rolls to go. And alto arias, which I've already filmed. But that's it. After that, we've got like showstoppers, we've got Act 2 openers, we've got Act 2 finales, overtures, which I am not at all qualified to judge, but I'm going to get help for that one. There's so much great stuff to go, and I'm also going to do a video where I walk around the GNS festival and show you guys all the cool things happening in Buxton. So if you are in Buxton and would like to like chat to me, if you want to be interviewed, if you have like any interesting stories about being on stage and just want to like chat to me about it, I'd love to meet up with you in Buxton. Let's do that. I want to chat to as many people as I possibly can about their experience of the GNS and why they love it so much. That's going to be my major focus in the Buxton documentary, just like chatting to people about why they love GNS. And let's try and find some common ground and like vibe with each other. Let's do it. So there's loads of cool things coming up. Just to let you know, in case I forget to say this in another video, that the next dialogue video I do, I'm actually going to do a bit out of sync. I'm going to do Yeoman of the Guard next, and then Gondoliers after that, and then I'm going to go back to Ruddigore. And the reason being is because I'm about to be in like a big production of Ruddigore, the Savoy-Net production of Ruddigore that's happening in the festival on the 10th of August in Buxton. And so I am reluctant to do that dialogue video until I have performed in that show. And partly it's because I don't want to feel like I am saying, because even though I'm not saying this is the best way to say the lines, apart from where it clearly is, I'm not saying this is the best way to say the lines, but if anyone watches that who is in the show with me, I think that just makes me feel a bit weird. I think I'd rather just separate the two. I'd rather like that was done, and then I'd take a couple of months to kind of think about the lines, to kind of purge my mind of anyone else's interpretations, and then just to do my own interpretation, so that it's not influenced in any way by that show that we do, and so I don't risk kind of influencing myself in a way. I want to feel like it's quite organic when I'm there, how I read the dialogue, so I don't want to decide now how I'm going to do that. So I hope that's understood. But that is why the next one will be Yeoman, and I'm going to save Ruddigore. Also, Ruddigore's going to be another brilliant one, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Thank you so much for watching my video, everybody. I really hope you liked this one. This was such a fun one to make. I absolutely love this dialogue. I couldn't even rank it. I mean, I will eventually, but I've no idea. There were no parameters to use because everything would have got 10s. And anything I mark down is only because it's just maybe slightly less great than the others. But like, it's so good. So good. Please subscribe. It's really easy to subscribe. You just have to click the button down there and then you can do it. It doesn't affect your life in any way. Because I think to get notifications, you have to also click the bell. So if you just subscribe, it doesn't change your life anyway. Just do it. And it helps me, like, it helps the YouTube algorithm understand to share this video with other people. And please do share these videos yourself. If you think, oh, I've got a friend who I want to show this video to, show it to them. And I will see you for the next one next week, which will be alto arias, which I filmed with Emma Retty, who played Tessa in the gondoliers at Hever Castle for me, and we had such a lovely time filming the alto arias. It took us 6 hours, so it's going to be another really long one. But you know, I know you guys really love my long videos, and I know that you watch every minute of them. So with that in mind, I will smell you all later.